For the panels we opted to go with 9mm birch ply. It strikes a good balance between stiffness, weight and price. Stiffer than 6mm, cheaper and lighter than 12mm, and unlike the 24mm ply the desks are made up of, I can move it all by myself. Then it was just a matter of breaking it down with a track saw into more manageable pieces until I could take it to the table saw and get it to a closer finished size. While the birch comes pretty smooth, the faces got sanded to 180 grit just using the 1 grit of sandpaper. Pre-finishing before carving means a lot less tedious painting between the lines. Touch-ups are much easier than coating the entire surface post-carving. Again, I'm using the black Osmo wood wax finish. After the panels were dry, I could fit them to the legs and noticed they were slightly wider than they needed to be. Then onto the carving. I'm using Inventable's easel to do this, and frankly it wasn't a great experience. Easel estimated it'd be about 5 minutes for the roughing process and 20 minutes for the detail pass. It took about an hour and a half all up. This is strictly an easel estimation issue, as no other software I run this through is that far off. Given I'm only going 0.5 millimeter deep, I absolutely could have increased the feed rate, so that one is all on me. Easel doesn't allow you to set the 0 point to the centre of the workpiece, which I think would have been better for this type of work. The tear out is generated from using a 1/4 inch spiral upcut bit. A spiral downcut bit would have resulted in a very clean cut, but unfortunately I don't have one of those. A second pass, a detail pass with a 1/8 inch spiral bit, did help clean up a lot of the tear out. I guess that bit was just sharper. To fit into the legs a little bit better, I knocked off the corners with a sander. You could do this with a saw. To remove the majority of the tear out, I just kind of rubbed it with my hand. Then the smaller stuff that was left behind, I took care of using 600 grit sandpaper. So as you can see, it's all starting to come together. This is just a dry fit of what will be the computer hutch side. So this involves 2 leg pieces as well as some cross braces. Both panels will receive a carving. So far we've only done the one panel, and there'll be different artwork on the different panels. This has taken a bit longer than I thought it would, but it's come out quite nicely. So it's finished with the 600 grit, sandpaper taking care of all the burrs, and then it will receive a coat of the Osmo Poly X, which I find really brings out the richness, the depth in the black, so it goes from kind of a greyish colour to a much richer, darker black. I'll move you around to this side so you can see a bit more perspective of the whole hutch side. So from the front side, this is primarily what you're going to see. This is the front panel. This will receive an engraving. However, unlike the side panel where it's only a 0.5 mil deep engraving, it'll go all the way through, so that's 9mm. The reason for that is for airflow for the computer. We don't want to overheat this, so good ventilation is always a good idea. It will be standing off from the frame, and that'll be held on with these aluminium sign standoffs. So it'll be standing out, I think it's about 19mm, these particular standoffs. So they are a 2-part system. One part will be screwed into the actual legs themselves, and the other part will go through some holes that I'll drill in these front panels, and then that'll just secure it, or screw it on. That'll allow us to remove the panel should they get damaged, should we need easy access to the front of the computer, for cleaning, for if we decide we want different panels and different engraving on the front. This also gives you a bit of an idea of the scale of the computer hutch. It's quite wide, so it actually allows a lot of ventilation on the side as well. There'll possibly be only just a few rails rather than a whole platform holding the computer up. and this will allow more ventilation from underneath. Unlike the plywood computer case that I built, our desktops that live in our study actually have decent hardware in it, and they produce a lot more heat. So it's always a good idea to ventilate those so that they don't melt down. Other than the initial breaking down and laminations, I haven't really talked about this whole leg structure other than in the design videos, and they will be the subject of the next video. As you can see, I've pre-finished them. There is all the rounding over, the sanding. Once they're glued up, I'll actually be able to release a video for that. If you can't tell, I'm pretty stoked about how this is turning out. I really like the artwork my wife did. If you haven't guessed, it's a picture of our cat that she's drawn in a low poly style, and I think it looks fantastic. It really matches in with the geometric shapes of the desktop, all the straight lines in the plywood, and we're trying to continue a theme. Whether or not it works overall sort of doesn't matter that greatly. We like all the individual elements, and at the end of the day, that's probably all that matters. Thanks for watching.